Good evening, everyone. It's Wednesday, May 14th, 2025, 11 p.m. Central Standard Time here in Champaign, Illinois, and you're watching Co-op for Two. I'm hoping you can't hear the air conditioner too much. Tonight, we are continuing our playthrough. Some of you may be mystified why we are continuing our playthrough, but we are continuing our playthrough of a game called the Suzaku Detective Series. We think it's Chinese. My mother emailed me last night. She said, I think you made a mistake. Sounds like a Japanese name. I asked ChatGPT. It said, well, it's originally Chinese, but it's been adopted by the Japanese as well. So I'm not sure. It's definitely manufactured in China, but most games are. And this detective we've been following is actually in France. So no, and there's no way for us to find out about this game. There's no website. Now, we did play the first case on Monday, and it was a very mixed experience. The mechanics, the setup, the storytelling were actually much better than I expected, and the actual mysteries and solutions were much worse than I feared. And I think there was fairly mixed reaction in general to those of you who joined me for it. We all agreed the solutions were terrible and ridiculous, but we also all agreed that it was fun trying to figure out the solutions and debating it. And today, I wasn't sure I was going to live stream, but I got a lot of good coding done. So at the last minute, someone proposed that we play case 2. I said, I don't know, are you joking or are you serious? They said, I'm serious. I asked Jonathan Warner. He gave us the green light. So here we are. Let's check in with the chat here. Eric says, sorry about last video. I was really interested in the Deadbolt Mystery Society Return of Jack the Ripper. Well, we're going to get to that. We are going to get to that eventually. But I am curious what case 2 looks like. And I showed you on our last video why case 2 looks interesting. So there's us, there's the rules, and this was the case from Monday, a 2-part case. And the most interesting thing, well, there are a couple interesting things. One is that there's some continuing conspiratorial storyline. Why isn't that up? Storyline about some ancient criminal organization. But the other reason I'm really curious about the second case, which is here, the missing quarter, has to do with this envelope. Because this is promises to be little items you use. And in the first case, we only had one card given to us. And it was just background knowledge that has nothing to do with our case. It was sort of flavor text about the Paris Metro. But in today's case, we've got a big stack of these cards. So I am quite curious to see if they differ in any substantial way, and I can see just from looking at this that they're different, like that they're items that we might use. All right, let me check in with the chat and then we'll get started here. I'm drinking some Kenya Double A coffee from one of the local coffee roasters here in Champaign, Page Espresso, Page Roasting. Perplexed Puzzlers says, I guess even when the conclusion is wild, it still gives a group of people something to talk about. Very awkward thing, can be enjoyable in that sense, at least. Could be the spirit of it. We'll see. Well, it's absolutely true. There's lots of things that are sort of miserable that you can complain about that in ice, if you're doing it all by yourself, it's really unpleasant. But if you get to commiserate with friends, it's the old misery loves company thing. All right. Let's take a look at the missing quarter. And now we have these three letters. We may want to try to put together all the red letters and see if they spell anything. This feels like it's a little bit thinner than our first case. I don't know if it's in two parts like our first one is, but let's have a look. Take out the card related to the missing quarter from the item envelope. Okay, well, it says card, but really there's a whole... They're actually sorted by case. There's two groups. Case 1, background knowledge, and case 2. Maybe it means we should be getting background knowledge only. It's optional for players. Not reading it won't affect the deduction. Read the script, review the clue cards, organize the clues, deduce the method of the crime, identify the murderer, open the truth ending to check. Background knowledge just helps you. All right, so I don't know if when we're supposed to read this or the clues, but let's start here. On a secluded island, 2 mysterious murders have occurred over the span of 5 years, remaining unsolved to this day. The owner of the island's resort has invited the renowned detective Suzaku to solve the mystery. All right, so it's us, Detective Suzaku, and a police officer, Carl. Okay, so Carl's back in the case today. Then we have a dancer, Emily, a nurse, Naya, a teacher, Ted, salesman, Lyle, a female painter, Mia, a boxer, and a male broadcaster. Okay, case 1. Let me just see. Please refer to the following character cards. Okay, so it's going to tell us when to get cards. So let's just read the background. Without considering the motive, the basic principle of a locked room murder lies in creating an apparently impossible crime. This deceptive appearance can be divided into several main types. 1, making the victim disappear. 2, making the murder weapon disappear. And 3, making it seem impossible for the murderer to commit the crime in time and space. The essence of a locked room is like a magic show, where the criminal uses tricks like fabricating evidence, misleading witnesses, and utilizing unnoticed natural phenomena and common sense to set the stage for the crime. Solving a locked room mystery involves questioning all assumptions and following rigorous logical principles. Okay. Are these all locked room mysteries? That's pretty good. That's a real classic feel. All right, here we go. Case 1. So I've got 2 cases in this book that are connected. Surrounded by the boundless sea, the piercingly cold wind chills to the bone. I stand on the deck of the ferry, tightly wrapped in my disheveled coat. I turn to the man beside me and say, "Perhaps next time you could invite me in a more comfortable way." Invite me in a more comfortable way. The man named Matt is the owner of the St. Charanma Island Resort. Called my office at 4 a.m. today asking for help. Matt, wearing a thick down jacket with his head buried in a down hat, his nose red from the cold, replies, "I'm sorry, Mr. Detective, but this is the fastest way to the island. Indeed, this ferry can transport people and vehicles to the island." Matt says St. Charanma Island is an isolated island developed into a resort because of its shape resembling a Chinese coin. He built villas at each corner of the island for tourists, and the entire island is surrounded by cliffs with only one exit, where he has set up a management office. Today's case is very similar to one from 5 years ago, Matt says loudly over the wind. I ask, "Do you suspect it's the same person?" Matt nods and then shakes his head. In my confusion, he sighs. Well, 5 years ago, there was a sensational mystery murder here. 4 tourists came to the island, and 3 were found dead in their villas, leaving only a salesman named Lyle alive. The police suspected it was an insurance fraud by Lyle, as all 4 had bought insurance naming each other as beneficiaries. But no evidence was found. I nod and ask, so Lyle came back? Exactly. He brought 3 others with him, but this time, Lyle is the victim, Matt says gravely. Police are still clueless, but the murderer must be among those 3. If this case isn't solved, my resort will be doomed, so I had to ask for Suzaku's help. I reply, don't worry, sir. I'll do my best. Matt hands me a bag of documents, and I begin to go through the details of the case from 5 years ago. Okay, refer to the character cards. After reviewing the character cards and map, continue reading. Okay, so it's giving us full instructions of what to do. Not case 2, but case 1 cards we're going to read. All right, let's see. So we've got cards about the different characters. There's Lyle. There's Teacher Ted, Nurse Naya, and Dancer Emily. So 5 years ago, Lyle showed up with 3 other people, and Lyle was the only survivor. And now we're being told that Lyle has come back 5 years later, and he's the victim. Now, it says reviewing the character cards and map, but I don't see any map. I mean, there's a map where it says case 2. Okay, so this says case 2, but it also says map of the murder case 5 years ago. So I think that might be a mistake, and we're allowed to look at it. But let's walk through these first. First, let's read Lyle's card. He's American, male, 30 years old. On the morning of December 7, 2017, 4 people arrived at St. Charonma Island together. 9 a.m., checked in at the entrance management office. 7 p.m., a power outage occurred on the island for an unknown reason. The manager activated the backup power source and called each guest. Lyle reported his safety upon receiving the call. 10 p.m., called the manager for a bottle of water. 10:10 p.m., manager brought water to Lyle and left after a 30-minute conversation to check on villa number 2. 11:30 p.m., the manager on patrol found Lyle to be the only survivor. Vehicle use record, no signs of usage in the last 12 hours. Personal items, 2 sets of portable sensors with batteries and corresponding receivers covering the entire island, capable of detecting animal or human movement, and a card with a black axe drawn, and an insurance policy. So this is the case from 5 years ago. He was the only survivor, and we've got a little timeline. Okay, Ted. American male, 28 years old. On the morning of December 7, 4 people arrived at St. Charonma Island together. 9 a.m., checked in entrance management. 7 p.m., power outage occurred due to an unknown reason. Manager activated backup power source. Teacher did not receive the manager's call, so the manager reported this to the resort owner, Matt. 8:30 p.m., Matt personally drove to the teacher's villa to check on him and found that the teacher was in the shower and had missed the call. As Matt was leaving, he noticed something shimmering in the bushes outside the teacher's villa. 11:20 p.m., manager on patrol found the teacher dead in his villa. Time of death, 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. Cause of death, arrow shot to the back. Murder weapon, crossbow. found beside the teacher without any fingerprints. No sign of vehicle usage in the last 12 hours. Personal items, hammer, a black axe card, and an insurance policy. Okay, the nurse, female, 27 years old. They all checked in. Yeah, they all checked in at 9 a.m. 7 p.m., there's the power outage. The manager calls each guest. The nurse reports she's safe after receiving the call. 11 p.m., manager on patrol found her dead in her villa. Time of death again, 7 to 10 p.m., again killed by arrow shot to the back. The murder weapon was a crossbow. No signs of vehicle usage in the last 12 hours, and her personal items include some anesthetic, another card with a black axe, and an insurance policy. Okay, and here's Emily, the dancer. Checked in at 9 a.m. like everyone else. The power goes out at 7 p.m. all over the entire island. Managers calling all the guests. The guests reported their safety upon receiving the call. I guess that means Emily reported her safety. At 11 p.m., manager on patrol found her dead in her villa. Manager immediately called the police and swiftly inspected the other villas. Arrow shot to the back, crossbow, no signs of vehicle usage. She's got a knife and a card with a black axe drawn and an insurance policy. And then I think we're allowed to look at this map showing the villas on the four corners of the island. All right, so it does seem like we have enough to think about a little bit of timeline. I do want to refresh my memory about how far these places. There's only one exit at where the management office is, so this is the only way on and off the island. Any note of distance between them? Each corner of the island, the entire island is surrounded by cliffs. All right, so I want to see about the timeline of visits here. It sounded like the dancer might be the first victim. 11 p.m., found her body, called the police, and inspected the other villas at 11. Because here's 11:30, Lyle is found. 11:20, the teacher is found. And 11:10, the nurse is found. Okay, so there's our timeline of when the bodies were found. Emily at 11, Naya at 11:10, Ted at 11:20, and Lyle, the surviving person, is found, the only survivor, at 11:30. The crossbow is found near the third body. So dead with an arrow by crossbow, dead with an arrow by crossbow, dead with an arrow by crossbow, and the crossbow is left with the third body. No fingerprints. Seven p.m. they all get called. Lyle responds and says, "I'm fine." Teacher doesn't respond, but gets visited and reports in shower with something shimmering outside the teacher's villa. All time of death is 7 to 10 p.m. And Lyle asks for water at 10. Now, I only have one real question to ask two questions. The first one has to do with this person in the shower. So how do you read this if you think there is a way to interpret this? No answer to the phone, so the person drives there. And here's what we're told. Found that the teacher was in the shower and missed the call. That sounds like that this Matt, the owner, has made contact with the teacher. And the teacher has said at 8:30, I was in the shower, I'm fine. So that's how I'm reading it. And so the time of death couldn't have been before 8:30. I'm just thinking this is sort of the medical examiner's time of death, reported to be somewhere in the 7 to 10 range. Does everyone agree with that? Or does someone think that it's possible that Matt arrives, sees that the person is still in the shower, and doesn't even talk to them? Because that's a possibility too, right? It is at least a possibility that the owner has just concluded that the teacher missed the call because here's the shower running and just concludes that. But it sounds like they're saying that he made contact with the teacher and the teacher's alive by 8:30. So everything we know tells us that Lyle could have had time to kill all these people and get back to his place, right? No reason why at 7 p.m. he couldn't have gone and killed all of these people. But this one he couldn't have killed before 8:30. But still he would have time at 9 to go kill them all and get back. Now, I see one other piece. I see one other clue. All right. Here's a little there are a couple things. First of all, I do notice that all of the cards have a black axe, a card with a black axe drawn, but Ted's card says he has a black axe card. It doesn't say it's drawn. I'm assuming that's sort of a typo and that they all have black axe drawn. They all have some odd items. There's this thing shimmering in the bushes that's very odd. But I noticed one more thing. Let me ask you a question. We wondered how far apart these villas are from each other. What clue do we have about that? Let's say I told you that Lyle couldn't have gotten to all these people because it would have taken him an hour to get to each person. How do we know that's not true? That's right, because the manager is going to each of these places with the 10 minutes between each of them. Now it says he's on patrol. Is he walking? Is he driving? We don't know. But we know that at least it's possible to go to take a 10-minute trip to visit each person. So you could make the rounds in 40 minutes. We don't know if you'd need a vehicle to do that because they don't seem to, any of them, to be driving any vehicle. And we're not told, right? We're just told the manager's on patrol, but we don't know if the manager is walking or not. All right. And what about the order? Let's see about the manager, if that makes sense. Starts with Emily, who's the dancer. Then they go to the nurse, then to the teacher, then to Weil. Okay, so here is the route that the manager takes to check in on people. Starts at the villa, then comes around this way. All right. Let's get back to our reading. According to the police investigation, the dancer, teacher, nurse, and salesman became friends at a party and bought insurance together on October 8, 2017, naming each other as beneficiaries. Matt stated that the island is somewhat large and it takes half an hour to drive around it and at least 4 hours to walk around it. There we go. So now we know the manager making his patrol was driving, but it would have taken 4 hours to walk it. And there's no sign of vehicle use by any of the guests. Now we have a problem. Because now it's not so clear how Lyle could have made the rounds on foot to kill these people. Okay, now we got an interesting case on our hands. Okay, half an hour to drive, 4 hours to walk. For this reason, he provided the manager with a patrol vehicle. To protect guests' privacy, there are no surveillance cameras in the villa area. They only equipped a telephone in each villa for service calls. If a manager cannot contact a guest, they immediately report it, go to the villa to check. Managers change shifts between 5 and 6 p.m., patrol at 11 to ensure the guests' safety. Upon discovering the guests' deaths, the manager immediately called the police to report it and reported it to Matt. At 1 a.m., the police arrived at the scene. They found the 3 victims were killed by the same weapon, a crossbow, which they noticed damaged electrical equipment at the dancer's villa door. The police detained the night shift manager and Lyle, considering them suspects. After investigation, the night shift manager was released as he didn't know the guests and had no opportunity to commit the crime. Lyle refused to admit guilt when questioned by the police. Why? I asked curiously. Matt shrugged lightly, saying, the police found the sensors and receivers in Lyle's villa. Thought it was his method of committing the crime, but Lyle said he had set them up because he was overly cautious and felt unsafe. The key is that he has an alibi because it would take 4 hours to leave his villa, kill 3 people, and return. So where'd the missing hour go? Ultimately, due to insufficient evidence, the police concluded the case as an attack by someone from outside the island. I closed my eyes and pondered for a moment, replaying the entire case in my mind. I asked Matt, is the phone ring loud at the villas? Yeah, because the island's really quiet. As long as you're not far from the villas, you won't miss those calls, he replied. Okay. I continued to ask him, why did it take you over an hour to go to the teacher's villa when the manager couldn't reach him at 7 p.m.? Well, because he specifically told me that afternoon not to disturb him before 8:30 in the evening, Matt recalled. Soon I grasped the key point. The mystery is solved. Your task, after reading, turn the page to continue reading the script. After deducing the second case, consult the truth ending manual. After reading, turn the page. After deducing, so are we supposed to solve it? I mean, he's figured it out. Why haven't we figured it out? And are we supposed to? Or should we just read case 2? This is the same thing as before. It's given us a case. We could read the second case, but it feels like we should try to solve this one now because he's solved it now. And here he is again asking questions. I love this part. I love this little meta part where it's like an extra clue because we're seeing a little insight into our detective and he's figured it out based on these questions. And that's very tempting. Like, what is it? Why has he asked what he's asked? It's like a little mini mystery. Why has he asked what he's asked? And why are the answers enough for him to conclude it? Let's see what the chat thinks here. Is it possible the person killed the teacher in the shower, put the shower on to create a diversion? Kind of sounds like a taunting. Yes. There's an old movie with Michael Caine called The Wrong Box, which I stole the name from my case from, called The Wrong Book. The Wrong Box is about a taunting, and it's pretty cool. I absolutely recommend it. It's an old movie. It doesn't really hold up, but it has its own style. I recommend it. Taunting is a group of people all put in some money, and then 50 years later, when the last one surviving member of the taunting gets all the money. Okay. Flying Hellfish. I don't remember that one. Jonathan says, I think it wants us to solve it now. All right. So let's review a couple of details here. 2 suspects, night manager and Lyle, and they let the night manager go. He didn't know the guest, he had no opportunity. So I think we have to write him off. We're not given his alibi, but we're told, trust us, he's not involved. And then they're very suspicious of Lyle because of sensors and receivers. But they let him go because he had an alibi because it would take him too long to get around the island and kill everyone if he was walking and there's no sign of vehicle traffic. It feels like the most likely answer is that he's hitched a ride on the vehicle, but let's see if we can make that work. Now, what has he asked? He's asked, is the phone loud? Does he think the person would have gotten out of the shower and answered the phone? And then he says, how come you didn't go to the teacher's villa earlier? He specifically told me that afternoon not to disturb him before 8:30. Does he mean the teacher told him not to disturb him before 8:30? Why did it take you over an hour to go to the teacher's villa? I see. Okay, the teacher is the only one. This is the suspicious part. The teacher is the only one that didn't answer the phone call. The rest of them answer it at 7. So we know where everyone is at 7, except the teacher. And then the detective was saying, he didn't answer his phone call at 7, but you don't show up till 8:30. Why is that? Apparently the teacher said, don't disturb me before 8:30. All right. So there's actually lots of interesting things for us to think about. The distinct impression I get is that we're supposed to prove that Lyle is murderer. But that's our first question that we could answer, yes or no. And then a second question is, was he able to walk or vehicle? If not for the fact that this seems to suggest that the teacher is alive at 8:30, then you could imagine a case where, let's see, Lyle answers the phone. It takes 4 hours to go around the island. So you could imagine that at 7 he gets the call. Then he walks here by 8, kills this person. Walks here by 9, kills this person. Walks here by 10, kills this person, and then walks here and gets home. Why do we know that's not the case? How do we, is it that simple? Hold on a second. What's wrong with this theory? 7 p.m. he gets the call. Then it takes 4 hours to go around the island. So 7 p.m. he gets the call and he heads off. Da, 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 da. By 8 p.m. he gets to the dancer's villa and kills the dancer. By 9 p.m. he gets to the nurse and kills the nurse. By 10 p.m. he gets to the teacher, kills the teacher. By 11 p.m. he's home. Is that a problem? What's wrong with that theory? Then they've all been killed between 7 and 10. The teacher's alive by the time 8:30. The teacher's still alive. He doesn't get killed till 10 p.m. What's wrong with that timeline? Because he called the manager for a bottle of water at 10 p.m. That's the missing hour. He called for water and the water's delivered. Okay. Okay, good. So this 7, 8, 7 to 8, 8 to 9, 9 to 10 doesn't work. But what about, yes, okay. And it doesn't work to go 7 to 8, 8 to 9, 9 to 10. Because then he hasn't killed the teacher. Talks till 10:30. You can't then go kill the teacher whose time of death was 7 to 10. Okay, good, 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 good. He could kill most of them, but the problem is he has to be home by 10. Okay. Not only that, but the crossbow is left at Ted's house alongside him. All right. So another possibility, as we said, because they all inherit each other's thing, you could imagine that one of the others is killing the others. But we think only one crossbow. That makes it a little trickier. Right? Like you could imagine that, let's say Ted was planning to kill everyone. So he kills people. Lyle has to be finished and home by 10. But you could imagine a scenario where Ted and Lyle agree to kill these other two women. Ted goes and kills them and is back home by, let's say, 9. And then Lyle goes over to Ted's house at 7, kills Ted, who's already killed these two, and then walks home and is back by 10. Right? That's a plausible scenario. It takes an hour to walk to each place. So I say that Lyle leaves his place at 8, goes to Ted, kills Ted, drops the crossbow, and walks back. So from 8 to 9, 9 to 10, and then he's home for the water, and Ted is dead, killed at 9 p.m. That would mean Ted before has to be home by 9 so that he can be killed. And in that scenario, Ted would have to leave at 7, get to Naya at 8, kill her, get to Emily at 9, kill her. He still can't get back in time. I'm not sure. I kind of have a feeling that maybe the answer is that this guy was not actually in the shower when this person showed up at 7. Or that another possibility is that one of these people that answers the phone and says they're okay is not actually the person. Is it possible that these two are never checked on in person. These two are. So you could imagine that when these person report that they're okay, that they're not actually home at 7. If Ted is the killer, but is not actually in the shower, let's say he's not found in the shower, but the shower is just left on. In fact, you could imagine that Lyle is in his shower pretending to be him. Let's say Lyle is in this guy's shower at 8:30, and then he's going to travel after that here. He's going to kill him and travel back to his apartment. But that before that, Ted kills these two. They can't be answering both of their phones. In fact, yeah, that doesn't work because they're all getting simultaneous calls. The three of them, other than Ted, must be in their rooms. But Ted could be in one of their places at 7. So let's say at 6 p.m., Ted travels and he's in Emily's room and kills her at 7 and answers the phone for her and says, "I'm fine." Then he walks to Naya and kills her at 8. And he's left the shower on. And Lyle has come to Ted's house and pretends to be Ted in the shower. All right, so let me just work this through. Then I'm going to check in with the chat. So here's my theory. At 6 p.m., that Ted and Lyle have arranged to kill the two women. That's their plan. At 6 p.m., Ted walks over to Emily's place well before 6 p.m. But he turns on his shower and he walks over, and maybe he doesn't have to turn on his shower. He walks over and kills Emily at 7 p.m. and gets the phone call pretending to be Emily. At 8 p.m., he makes his way to Naya and kills her at 8. Meanwhile, Lyle has gone to Ted's place so that he can be there when the Matt shows up and come out of and answer from the shower that, "Sorry, I was in the shower, I missed the call." She's killed at 7. She's killed at 8. Then Ted is on his way back to his place between 8 and 9. I guess in that case, he doesn't have to pretend to be her, because she died at 7. So she answers the phone, then he kills her at 7. He walks over to the nurse, kills her at 8. He starts to head back to his place. In the meantime, Lyle is over there pretending to be him in the shower. When Ted arrives back at 9, Lyle double crosses him, shoots him, drops the crossbow, and heads back to his house, which is only an hour away from Ted's, where he can call the manager and have the discussion. No one has to pretend to be anyone else answering the phone. But that requires 2 people thinking that they're in it together and one double crossing, while double crossing Ted. All right, let's see what the chat thinks of all this. All right, let me not try to make sense of the stuff the chat has said until now, since I presented my theory. So, okay. So Shazner says, that's my idea, essentially. I can't tell who you're responding to. So, okay. So there's that. So I've given you my theory. I've given you my theory. Now, what does the chat think of that? What am I trying to find? This view? Maybe we could put these in the right position. Like there's the nurse, there's Lyle. So here's what it looks like. One of them is knocking out the power as well, probably Lyle. So Ted sets out early, could be as early as 5 p.m. to get to the dancer's house. I guess, yeah, to the dancer's house. Times the turning off the electricity, 7 p.m. She answers the phone. She says, I'm fine. She answers the phone, I'm fine. He answers the phone at 7 p.m., I'm fine. Ted is not home to answer his phone. Soon as she says she's fine, he kills Emily. Ted does. Then he starts walking to Naya. By 8 p.m., he's killed Naya. Meantime, after answering the phone call at 7, Lyle heads to Ted's house, where he hops in the shower and pretends to be him at 8:30 when Matt arrives to check on him, and he yells from the shower, I'm in the shower. I missed the phone call. At 8:30, Lyle is on his way back to his house. I guess he probably went in the other direction, right? Here is where he ends up at 7. Then at 8, he's at Emily's. No, sorry. Starts at Emily. 7. He's here at the nurse at 8. Lyle has made his way to Ted's house, hopped in his shower, so he's there by 8:30. At 8 o'clock, the teacher Ted is headed back to his house, where Lyle is waiting for him, takes the crossbow from him because they think they're in it together, but shoots him at 8:45 or so, and then Lyle walks back to his house where he can make it by 10. Okay. Perplexed Brother says, I don't think Lyle was involved with everyone, but probably did at least one. Don't you think the sensors must figure in somehow, used to remotely trigger a crossbow? Jonathan says, I don't think Ted can start at the dancer's house at 7. I believe he's back at his house by 8:30 and talks to the manager in person. Well, it's true. My whole theory works on the fact that Lyle is impersonating him. DJ says, based on these theories, the theories are way too sane. Think more along the lines of people leaping backwards into arrows. Let me try to do it so that the teacher, my theory falls apart if the manager personally talks to the teacher at his house at 8:30. But let me try to do it the other way. Let me try to solve it differently. What if I still say that these two are in on it together? And that he's not really home in the shower at 7. Okay, so the plan is at 7 p.m., these three are all home. They get their calls. But Ted has secretly walked over to the nurse's house and is waiting outside her house. He doesn't get his phone call. 7 p.m. phone calls come in, and he kills Naya at 7, and then he walks back, and now he's home by 8, having killed Naya. Meanwhile, at 7, after getting his phone call, Lyle walks over to Emily and kills Emily with a second crossbow. He kills her at 8, and then he walks back home by 9. But now we have a problem, which is, how does Ted get killed? If he's here by 9, he has to be here at 10 to call the manager. That's the problem I have. Like, they could kill the two women with a second crossbow. If he killed Ted at 9, he could get back home by 10. Then you'd have to have killed. Maybe it makes more sense to fake the phone answering. Let me just do one more thing. 7 p.m. comes. What if Lyle is already over here and Ted is already over here? Phone calls come. Ted's not home, so he can't answer his phone. But he answers the phone pretending to be Lyle. And Lyle kills Emily at 7. Then Lyle walks here at 8 and kills her. And Ted walks back home to his house to get the 8:30 call. Killed her at 7. He's walked here at 8. By here, at 9, he can kill Ted. And then by 10 p.m., he's back home. Does that work? I think that might work. So Lyle and Ted agree that Ted is going to be Lyle's alibi. So at 6 p.m., Lyle walks to Emily and Ted walks to Lyle. Then it's 7 p.m., the calls come through. These three answer their call. Then Lyle kills Emily at 7. Ted answers Lyle's phone and says, "I'm fine." No answer from Ted. Then from 7 to 8, Lyle walks to Naya and kills her, and Ted goes back home. Now Ted is home at 8 p.m. and he stays home. From 8 to 9, Lyle walks over to Ted's house. He's visited at 8:30 by the manager who leaves. Lyle gets to Ted's house at 9 p.m. with the crossbow, shoots Ted, drops the crossbow, and walks back to his house. And he's there by 10 to call and get his delivery. That's it. It's totally solved. And no one had to, the only person who had to fake the phone is Ted had to answer Lyle's phone and pretend to be him. That feels completely plausible to me. Where's my... This seems like a good time for me to use my thing. All right, I'm going to see what you guys think of all this in a sec. This seems like the perfect time to bring out my people. Okay, so we have a dancer and a nurse. All right, where's the nurse? There'll be our nurse. And then we'll get the dancer, put her in a dress somehow. Okay, and then I claim Lyle is going to be the main guy who kills people. And Ted is going to be his helper. All right. We're going to do this just because it's fun. And as Jonathan says, I'm not convinced this is going to be the official solution, but I want to get it on the record because I like it. And we can use these to track movements. All right. So we have Emily. And we have Naya, the nurse. And we have Lyle, who's going to be the mastermind. And we have Ted. And here they are exactly as they're organized on the map. All right. Now we need to have everyone on their phones and for their meetings. Okay. So 6 p.m. comes. Six p.m. comes. Where's my thing? Okay. 6 p.m. Lyle takes the 1 hour walk with the crossbow to Emily. Ted takes the 1 hour walk up to Lyle's place. The two of them are in cahoots. They're planning to kill the two women and split the money. Okay, so that's where everyone is at 7. 7 p.m. comes. The calls get made to everyone. Ted doesn't answer his phone call. Everyone else, Naya answers and Emily answers, and Ted answers the phone pretending to be Lyle. That's my only thing where someone has to pretend to be someone else. Okay, I'm okay, no answer. They're in on it together. That's why he's left this instruction to not disturb me before 8:30 because he's in on it. Lyle shoots Emily with the crossbow at 7 p.m., right after she answers the phone. Now, 8 p.m. At 8 p.m., Lyle walks over here, and Ted walks back home. Lyle then shoots Naya, and at 8:30, the manager shows up here, knocks on the door. Ted answers the door, says, "Sorry, I missed the phone call. I was in the shower." The manager leaves. At 8:30, Lyle is halfway to Ted's house. He gets there by 9. Ted says, "We did it," and Lyle shoots him in the back, killing Ted at 9 p.m. Then Lyle, from 9 to 10, walks back to his house, where he calls the manager and says, "Bring me water." The manager shows up at 10:10 with the water. They talk for a half hour. Lyle says, "You better check on everyone." And the manager goes and checks Emily. She's dead. Naya, she's dead. Ted, he's dead with the crossbow at his body. Back here, and Lyle's alive and fine. So there you have it. There is my theory. I feel good about it. Any comments on this? Alternative theories? I guess we don't get to find out about it till we read our second case. We'll just have to remember. All right, let's see. The only issue with this is the manager claims to see something shining in the bushes, which might be indicating the crossbow is in the bushes. Marco says this is Mansions of Madness miniatures. Yes. Yeah, he does see something in the bushes. It's possible that he's seeing Lyle halfway. Maybe when he says on the bushes, maybe he's seeing Lyle halfway to the villa. Or it's just a complete red herring. So what's the problem with this theory? Let's think about the possible flaws. It requires Ted to fake the voice of Lyle. They're both within 2 years of each other, though. Seems like it would be easy to do. Or he's using the walkie-talkie to answer the phone, pretending to be there. It's hard to know what these sensors and receivers are. It doesn't explain the shiny something in the thing, but that just seems like no big deal. And it does put the two of them in cahoots. But you could imagine that he even convinced the teacher to come do this for some other reasons. Like maybe, like this guy didn't even have to kill anyone. All he ever had to do was pretend to be Lyle answering the phone. So maybe Lyle convinced him like, hey, I'm going to have a rendezvous with the dancer. I need you to pretend that I'm home. Like you could imagine he might not even be in on the killing scheme. Well, here's your answer for the shiny something, Jonathan. So look, Lyle is here by 8, right? And Ted is home by 8. So now here comes 8:30. He's halfway there, right? Okay. Now, you're asking what's with the shiny object. Well, it doesn't say when he leaves. It says as Matt was leaving, he noticed something shimmering. So doesn't it seem quite likely that he doesn't leave until 9 p.m.? He gets there at 8. He has a long conversation with Ted. He says, what were you doing? How are you doing? You missed the call, or is everything okay? And at that time, Lyle is approaching the villa. So Lyle gets there almost at 9 p.m. and is hiding in the bushes when Matt leaves close to 9 p.m. And he sees the crossbow glimmering in the bushes. And it's Lyle just arriving, lying down in the bushes. And this guy leaves at 8:59, just when Lyle arrives and shoots Ted. And then Lyle goes home. So he could still be seeing Lyle with that shiny thing. I don't think Ted has any idea that Lyle is going to be killing anyone, just some sort of prank. If he knew he was going to be a phone call, he must have caused the power outage. Why would they be aware of the phone call is coming? Did they set up the power? Yes, they definitely set up the power failure. They absolutely set up the power failure. And if I'm right, the power failure was set up by Lyle, who's at Emily's house when he does it. So he probably had to trigger it then. Or Ted is triggering it then. Or he's triggering it via the sensors and stuff. But yeah, the whole don't call me before 8:30 and the traveling takes an hour means they had to be in total control of the power failures. So my theory is that Lyle or Ted triggers the power failure. All right, well, there's the theory. But I guess we're not meant to check our answer yet. Unless we want to break that rule. Like when we played yesterday, we decided we wish we had been told what the solution was. But what if it breaks it if we read it? All right, let's take our break. I'll see you in 8 minutes. We'll decide whether we want to just follow this booklet and read case 2 or whether we want to cheat, or not cheat, but if we think that maybe the case works better if we read the solution to this before we play the second one. The first case, we could have done that. Nothing would have broken about it. It's just not clear. All right, well, let's take our break. I'll see you in 8 minutes. We'll decide what to do. You have a chance to pitch your own alternative theory if you don't like mine. I'll see you in 8 minutes. All right, we were talking about whether we should read the solution to this first case, which I think would be a little bit better for pacing, but I don't think we can because Lyle is involved in the second case. So I think probably it's better for us to not know whether he was in on it or not yet. Let's see. Perplexed Puzzlers was presenting a theory that it's a little too hard for me to understand. Could the shimmering object be a bottle of water or a sensor? My initial thought it was a camera installed so Lyle could tell exactly when Ted left. Otherwise, the clue about the sensors doesn't fit. John says, I think Jesse's theory will make more sense than the official solution. Yeah, you could imagine that he's using the sensors to make sure that he doesn't show up anywhere until the guy is discovered, until the manager leaves. All right, let's read case 2 and then we can revisit our solutions. Maybe something about case 2 is going to give us some insight into case 1. All right, here we go. Case 2. After reading, continue reading the script. Okay. As I opened my eyes again, I realized the ferry had already docked in the bay. Matt was sitting quietly beside me, his eyes filled with anticipation. He asked, Mr. Detective, have you solved it? Perhaps. I need to verify my thoughts, I replied with a light chuckle. Matt and I got into the patrol car parked on the shore. I need to see the crime scene, I said. Soon the patrol car slowly stopped at the entrance of Lyle's villa. I spotted a familiar figure and called out to him, and he turned to face me. The man was in a police uniform and seemed a bit surprised to see me, given our recent involvement in the Paris tunnel mystery case. Approaching him, I said, Long time no see. Suzaku, my friend, what brings you here? Carl asked, patting my shoulder joyfully. I'm here at the behest of Mr. Matt to help uncover the truth, I replied with a smile. That's great. I was just worrying about this case, Carl said as he put his arm around my shoulder and started walking towards the villa, but I stopped him. What's the matter? He asked, looking puzzled. I surveyed the area around the entrance, finally focusing on the fingerprint lock at the door. Seeing this, Matt immediately explained, the security facilities here were originally quite basic. Since the murder case 5 years ago, I've upgraded the facilities on the island. The lock requires a fingerprint to open from both inside and outside, and only our staff and the guests can open it. The system records when the door is open, but it does not record when it's closed. Curious, I asked, why doesn't it record when the door is closed? Oh, because closing the door doesn't require a fingerprint. It's common sense, right? Matt answered as if it were obvious. All right, I shrugged, then continued, when was the last time Lyle opened the door? Carl pulled out a small notebook from his chest pocket and flipped it open, saying, well, he checked in at 7 p.m. on December 6, 2022. The door lock recorded openings at 7 p.m. and 8 p.m. on the 6th, and not again until 11 p.m. on the 7th, when the manager found him dead in his room. There's no record of the door being opened in between. Maybe he died on the night of the 6th, I speculated. Carl shook his head, putting the notebook back in his pocket, and said, no, he was alive 7:05 p.m. on the 7th. He blocked the other 3 people and posted an update saying he was only 2 numbers short of winning the lottery. And the draw was at 7 p.m. that evening. The post included a selfie of him holding the lottery ticket in his room. In the photo, there's just a Roman column, and behind it, a cabinet with a bronze sculpture of a galloping horse. A Roman column? I inquired. Carl showed me a distribution map of the Roman columns in the halls of each villa. All right, it's telling us we can look at this now. So each of the villas have a different layout of columns. In Lyle's house, there's only a single column. We're going to hear that there's a female painter in one villa, a male broadcaster in another. In fact, I can see it's here. So they're in the same villas again. I mean, here's Lyle in the same villa that he was in before, in the older case. And each of the villas has a different layout of columns. I followed Carl to the crime scene where Lyle lay on the bed surrounded by police tape, guarded by staff. According to the forensic examination, Lyle's time of death was estimated to be between 7 p.m. and 10 p.m. on the 7th. He had a non-fatal blow to the back of his head. The cause of death was an overdose of sleeping pills. We can be certain of two things at the moment, Carl said, flipping through his notes. First, Lyle was alive at 7 p.m. on the 7th, as he indeed bought a lottery ticket that was just 2 numbers short of winning. Second, he never left his villa, which we can infer from the fingerprint lock record and his selfie at 7:05 p.m. Strangely, we found a crossbow and 3 arrows in his room. All right, we're going to have to reread a bunch of this. It's clear. Yes, sir, I agreed. I'd like to hear what the suspects have to say. Matt arranged a room for us to work in, and Carl asked someone to invite the guests from the other villas for a talk. So it's a little symmetry here. In the first case, 4 people. Lyle is the sole survivor, the other 3 dead. In this case, 5 years later, 4 people. Lyle's the only one dead, 3 survivors. It'll be interesting if these survivors are related to the 3 that were dead on the first trip. Okay, so Carl asked someone to invite the guests from the other villas for a talk. I settled on the sofa. There was a knock at the door. Come in, Carl said in a grave tone. The door opened and 2 men and a woman walked in. I cleared my throat, asked them to sit down, and invited them to introduce themselves. I'm an internet broadcaster, said the man clad in studded clothing, pushing up his silver-framed glasses. I'm a retired boxer, said the muscular man in a tank top. I'm a painter, said the woman in artistic attire, speaking timidly. Refer to the map of the murder case 5 years later. Okay, so now we get to see this, where they all were staying. I reviewed the check-in information, which showed that they had checked into the villa at 7 p.m. on December 6, 2022. I asked, what were you doing in the 2 days before the crime occurred? The male broadcaster, unfazed, said, I'm a dance blogger. After checking in on the 6th, I was live streaming. I was woken up at around 1 p.m. on the 7th by a call from Lyle, who wanted to have dinner with me. I went out to shoot videos at 1:30 p.m. and returned to the villa at 9 p.m. I had prepared a lot of food waiting for Lyle, but he never showed up by 10:30. I was so angry that he stood me up, so I furiously called him, but couldn't get through. It was at 11:10 p.m. when the manager came for the checkup that I found out Lyle was dead. The boxer scoffed and said, my story's similar. After checking in on the evening of the 6th, I went to work out. Lyle called me around 1 p.m. on the 6th to have dinner together. I went out for training at 5 p.m. and returned to the villa at 8 p.m. Waiting for Lyle, but he never showed. I tried calling him at 10:10 p.m., but couldn't get through. I didn't know about Lyle's death until the manager came for the checkup at 11:20. The female painter pondered and said, I was seasick on the 6th. After checking in that evening, I was so tired I went to sleep. And I went out to paint early on the morning of the 7th. Lyle called around 1 p.m. to have dinner together. I returned to the villa at 7 p.m., but he never showed up. I called him at 10:03 p.m., but it didn't go through. Didn't know Lyle was already dead until the manager's checkup at 11:30. They keep saying it didn't go through. Not that no one answered, but it didn't go through. I was constantly observing their expressions and noticed something odd about them. Carl nodded to me and whispered, "Their call records are true." I looked through the documents and said, "Investigation shows you all bought insurance together in October this year, naming each other as beneficiaries. I've been watching you, and you don't seem saddened by the loss of a friend." The three of them were momentarily startled by my words. Clearly, there was more to it. "How did you really meet?" I asked. We met him at a party," the broadcaster said, avoiding eye contact. I seized on the keyword and pressed, "What kind of party? And what does it have to do with this? Also," I took out a card with a black axe. "You all carry an insurance policy with this black axe card. What is this?" No one answered, and their faces showed a hint of wariness. Seeing this, Carl took out his gun and placed it on the table, his gaze sweeping over them threateningly. "If you don't speak, I have ways to make you talk," he said, then shouted towards the door, "Hey! Someone come here." The broadcaster stood up and protested loudly. "Officer, you're violating our rights." The painter sighed and finally said, "This card is an identity card for the night game. We joined a game organization called Night, which holds monthly parties for members to meet. That's where we met Lyle." Night, Is it all orchestrated by them again? Carl and I exchanged looks, clearly thinking the same thing. We nodded to each other. "Did you three also meet at these parties?" I asked. The boxer shrugged nonchalantly. "Yes, sir." "Who's the leader of your organization?" Carl asked sharply. "And what does this have to do with buying insurance and being each other's beneficiaries?" The boxer shook his head, indicating ignorance. "We've never seen him. He only appears at the parties and gives us tasks through voice-modulated calls. He has several projects for members to choose from, one of which involves forming teams to buy insurance with teammates as beneficiaries. He made you buy it and then kill each other for the compensation," I accused them with a cold laugh. The broadcaster, with a disdainful look, said, "The money I earn is more than this insurance. If I were to commit fraud, I would have killed everyone 5 years ago, leaving only myself." The boxer hurriedly interrupted him, putting him down to sit on the sofa. The broadcaster seemed to realize he had said too much and immediately quieted down. Since they also knew about the case 5 years ago, they must have known about Lyle. Why then did they agree to come here with him? And it was clear from their behavior just now that they were in cahoots, acting like old acquaintances. Was Lyle the real deceived one? Also, knowing Lyle's intentions, why did they still come with him? Did they have another purpose? "How many murder cases are related to Lyle?" I quietly asked Carl. He whispered back, "2. 5. One 5 years ago and one now." 5 years ago. Suddenly an idea flashed in my mind. If it wasn't for insurance fraud, then their purpose was related to the case 5 years ago. You all knew each other, but pretended not to, luring Lyle into a trap to kill him. Your goal wasn't insurance fraud, but something related to a victim 5 years ago. I attempted to coax more information out of them. Their faces turned pale instantly, but they tried to appear calm. After that, no matter what I asked, they no longer responded. Reluctantly, I had to let them leave the interrogation room. A technical staff member from the police department entered the room and handed us the latest investigation report. And here's the report. Except for the different Roman columns in front of the villa, the decor and furnishings of each of the 4 villas are identical. A bronze sculpture in Lyle's bedroom had his blood and fingerprints matching the blow to his head. Lyle's notebook mentioned reacting the missing quarter of the past. Lyle's notebook mentioned reenacting the missing quarter of the past. The missing quarter. That's the name of this case. The missing quarter. Food remnants containing sleeping pills were found in the drainage of the painter's room. It was discovered from the boxer's computer that he had been eavesdropping and spying on Lyle before arriving on the island. Many files were deleted. Data is being recovered. The technical staff said, we found that the painter and Lyle had purchased sleeping pills before coming to the island, but we didn't find any in her room. Moreover, all 3 used fake IDs, and their real identities couldn't be traced. The forged IDs were likely from the same source, as there was night written in tiny letters at the bottom left corner. I shivered inwardly. It's that organization again. Furthermore, we found something in the prison sentencing records, the staff added. The nurse, who was a victim in the murder case years ago, was the boxer's younger sister. He was in prison when she was killed. It seemed these 3 had premeditated plans. I asked, is there anything unusual about their door lock systems and vehicle usage? The technician shook his head. It's all consistent with their statements. No abnormal behavior was detected. I continued, apart from the fingerprinted main doors, there are no other exits in these villas, right? Carl took a drag from his cigarette and said, nope. Those windows can only be locked from the inside, and there are no signs of tampering. This is a locked room murder case. Maybe not. As the mantis stalks the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind. I already had the answer in my mind, but lacked the evidence. I looked at the selfie Lyle had sent and had a sudden insight. I quickly got in the car and drove to one of the 4 villas. Bingo, the killer made a mistake. This could be used as evidence, but first I needed to make the killer slip up and confess their crime. Deduce the murderers and methods of the 2 murders that occurred 5 years apart. I love this little setup where we get an insight into the detective when he comes to the realization. All right, this is a little convoluted, but it looks like our initial theory that these 3 have killed Lyle out of revenge for killing their relatives the first 5 years ago. But boy, I think we're going to have to read this again. This one was trickier. So we've seen all the cards. And we don't have cards for these new people with timelines, so it doesn't feel like it's a timeline thing so much anymore. Let's see what we've got. So Lyle has been killed, and they've got new security. You need a fingerprint to open, but not to close. You need a fingerprint to open even from the inside or outside. So when you leave, if you're leaving, you need a fingerprint, or if you're coming in, you need a fingerprint. But you could leave the door open for as long as you wanted, and it doesn't record when it's closed. So if it records an opening, it doesn't mean it was closed right after. It could have been left open. All right. 7 p.m. December 6th. They all arrive on the island December 6th. And then he's killed on the 7th. So we may have to take more notes this time. Okay, so at 7:05 p.m. on the 7th, Lyle is alive, we're told. And then openings at 7 and 8 on the December 7th. And then on December 6th, opening at 7 p.m. and 8 p.m. And on December 7th, 11 p.m. Okay. He was alive at 7:05. He blocked the other 3 people and posted an update. So is that why they couldn't get through? Because he's blocked them on his phone? Is that the idea? They all say that we couldn't get through, and I guess that's because he blocked them. Posted an update. He was only 2 numbers short of winning the lottery, and the draw was at 7 p.m. He was alive at 7:05. Oh, I see. Okay, I get it. So they're saying the reason we know he was alive at 7:05 is because at 7 p.m. was the lottery, and he posted a selfie holding the lottery ticket, so he must have obviously been alive. In the photo, there's a single Roman column, and behind it, a cabinet with a bronze sculpture of a galloping horse. So you can't fake that. You can't move a bronze sculpture, even if you're a big boxer. So it seems like that has to be in his real room, as long as the horse is supposed to be in his villa. Because I was thinking, you only see one Roman column. I mean, if you had none of these can be taken in that way, but if you took a photo in this direction or this direction, it would look like there was only one column. But let's verify that the galloping horse is supposed to be in his villa, not the painter's villa. All right, so they see Lyle. Time of death between 7 and 10. Non-fatal blow to the back of his head. That's a curious thing. That might have knocked him out, but the cause of death was sleeping pills. So maybe someone fed him sleeping pills. Maybe he did get together for dinner with someone, and then they're lying about it. Okay, so 2 things they know. He's alive at 7, and he never left his villa, which we can infer from the fingerprint lock record and his selfie. Strangely, we found a crossbow and 3 arrows in his room. So either he was planning to kill them, the rest of them, or they're using this as their signal that he's killed someone he shouldn't. I think that's what it's going to turn out. That, well, these are all people getting revenge on him. But either this is just a sign that we know you killed them, or he was up to no good. All right, let's see. The others come in. Here's the check-in. They all check in on the 6th. He's a dance blogger. He's probably relative of the old other dancer. He says, I was live streaming on the 6th. Okay, then at 1 p.m. on the 7th, he gets a call for dinner, which that's what they all say. They all say that he called them at 1 p.m. to make arrangements for dinner. Okay. This guy, the dance blogger, broadcaster, dance blogger, says he went out and he's back by 9 and he's prepared food, but he never shows up. He calls him, but he's blocked. And then he's still home at 11. Okay, similar story from the boxer. He gets called at 1, returned to the villa at 8 p.m. So it looks like he told different people different times for dinner. Like the broadcaster, he said, we're having dinner at 9. The boxer, he said, we're having dinner at 8. And he's blocked. The painter said she's sick. But she does go out and she gets a call at 1 and he makes plans to eat with her at 7. So 7 p.m., 8 p.m., 9 p.m. He makes different dinner appointments for each of them. I think maybe he's planning to poison them all. I think maybe Lyle's plan is to poison each of them during dinner. But he's killed before he has a chance to. He never showed up. So he tells each of them, 7 p.m., 8 p.m., 9 p.m., we're going to have dinner at your place. They're waiting for him to show up. I was constantly observing their expressions, and he detects this is suspicious. And he says their call records are true. So they all tried to call him, but they couldn't get through because he's blocked them. And now they all bought insurance. And then there's this weird thing about how we met, the Black Axe. They seem to be part of this group. Talk about this game. It's a little bit above my head, this stuff. And then we get the hint that they're all relatives of the previous people. He says, I don't need the money. I don't need the insurance money. And then he says, the money I earn is more than his insurance. If I were to commit fraud, I would have killed them. I would have killed everyone like 5 years ago. He's saying that they knew Lyle killed everyone, and that's why they're getting revenge. But he's revealing that he knows Lyle killed everyone. That's why his friend doesn't want him to, wants him to stop talking. Why did they trust him if they knew about that? Are they luring him to a trap? I think so. Okay, and then this guy, then the security comes in and gives us information. Except for the Roman columns, the decor are identical. Uh-huh. A bronze sculpture in Lyle's bedroom had his blood and fingerprints matching the blow to his head. Oh, maybe it's just a sculpture, not a life-size horse. Let me see. Hold on a second. A cabinet with a bronze sculpture. Oh, I thought it was a big full-sized horse. It's not. It's just a sculpture on a cabinet. So what if he's not in his house? What if he's at the woman's house and she's killed him at 7? They were supposed to have her They were supposed to be at her house at 7. What if they do take a photo at hers with the photo head on, so it only looks like one column? And what if she kills him at 7? And he never closed his door. But we don't see him opening his door. Okay, and the sculpture in his bedroom has his blood and fingerprints. I think I think they've just brought him back to his room. Where they've left him to die. Food remnants, sleeping pills in the drainage of the painter's room. So they purchased sleeping pills. I wonder if this is the same thing where he's got one accomplice that he's supposed to work with and kill everyone else. They've all used fake IDs. Here's the part where we hear their relatives. They're all going to be relatives of the 3 people getting killed. And he says, it's a locked room murder case. Maybe not, as the mantis stalks the cicada unaware of the oriole behind. I already had the answer. I drove to one of the 4 villas. Bingo, the killer made a mistake. I looked at the selfie and had a sudden insight. So I think that's what it's going to be about. He's figured out that he can take a photo that looks like it's being taken in Lyle's house, but it's not. Now, let me just check in with 11 p.m. on the 7th. The door lock recorded openings at 7 and 8 on the 6th. So I guess my theory would be that at 8 p.m. on the 6th, he Yeah, this is interesting. Door openings at 7 and 8 on the 6th. So, like, did the door open at 7 p.m. and close at 7:05, or did it open at 7 and then he left at 8? Or is he opening it to let someone in at 8, right? Like, we don't know if he's letting people in, coming in, or going out. And we have no knowledge if it closed. What we do know is that when his body is discovered at 11 p.m., he's in his place. But this guy says we can infer he never left his place. But we don't know if that's true, really. I don't know if I believe that, but I do believe that he's taken this selfie at 7 p.m. And we know his time of death between 7 and 10. Okay. Either people are in his apartment or he's been brought to his apartment. He never left his villa. We can infer from the fingerprint lock record. I don't know if I believe that. I mean, if it doesn't record when it's closed, could he not have? I think someone's visiting him the day before at 7 or 8 and messing with the latch so it doesn't close. If we assume that's the case, assume that someone visited him on the 8th and he let them in and they put some tape so that the door never closes. And then they're going to take it off when they're all done. So in that case, someone could get in at any time without being recorded. If that's fair play. So then what's my theory? My theory is it's a little odd that would rely on the fingerprint stuff never working. And what is my theory? That they knocked him out and then forced sleeping pills into his... Seems like it's almost too easy to come up with a solution that does this without, as long as we're allowing the doors to be jimmied. What if it's I was thinking, like, what if the painter who says she slept in and was sick, what if she went over to his house the night before? Let's say she goes over his house at 8 p.m. on the 6th and never leaves. So imagine she's over his house, but then that doesn't work, right? Because we're told, she says, I was tired. I went out paint early morning of the 7th. And we're told, I believe, that we should trust their locks, right? That's very important. I believe we're told that their records show they're telling the truth. That's important because they're all claiming that they went out in the afternoon. I'm going to check in with the chat in a second. Their call records are true. Okay, that's very important. Very important. if they're they're call records or they're door records. Their call records are true. But are their door records true? Is there anything unusual about their door lock systems and vehicle usage? No, it's all consistent with their statement. Okay, so I think we have to assume that they're telling the truth about when they left their apartments and stuff. So let's assume for a second, though, that the painter goes over to his house at 8 p.m. and that she lets him in. He lets her in at 8 p.m. on the 6th. And that when she leaves, she doesn't close the door. So all we see is her coming in at 8 p.m. on the 6th. No records of the door being closed and no records of it being open again, but the door is left open. So now anyone can come and go into his apartment. If that's the case, so she leaves at night, which is consistent with her going out early, but she's kept his door open. So at 7 p.m., he's taking a photo in his place. She just walks in, hit him over the head, force feed him poison down his throat. He dies. She closes the door. I don't, I don't, I'm struggling with this idea that if you could just leave a door propped open, it seems like there's too many easy ways to make anything happen. Maybe the chat has a better idea about this than I do. Clearly implying he was at someone else's villa by the way they're presenting it, but I don't know why that would be necessary. Otherwise, why go to all the trouble to describe the columns? Yeah, I agree. And I think, in fact, it certainly sounds like this would be the logical place he was, with the photo taken head on, so it looked like there was only one column. But I agree, it doesn't really seem like you need it. Lyle left his own door open. He opened it at 8 p.m. He was trying to create an alibi for himself where it would appear he had been in his villa when he was poisoning them. He left his own door open since he opened it at 8 p.m. the night before. I don't understand these comments about the floor is the only hitch. That's why the perp blocked everyone. I'm not following it. Maybe I'm just overloaded with facts here, but I'm not following it. Lyle could also have just left his own door open after the 8 p.m., creating his own alibi when he commits the murder, but they murder him. Would he really leave it open like that overnight? I don't know. I don't understand any of it. Now, if you can leave your door open, it just seems like anything is possible. I do like the idea that the lottery ticket thing is him trying to create an alibi for himself. Like my gut from meta perspective suggests to me that like they've hit him over the head with their horse and then they've swapped it with his room. But why would you bother? What what is he trying to do with setting up these dinners? Is his plan that he's going to visit each of them 7 p.m., 8 p.m., 9 p.m., and he's planning to poison them? So, yes. Okay, here's my theory. He is planning to poison them. His plan is to give himself an alibi for 7 p.m., make it look like he never left his house, but he's actually going to kill them at 7, 8, and 9 p.m. So he leaves his door open from the last time he went in. So it will look like he hasn't left, but he can really come and go. And then he shows up to her house at 7. They poison each other. She hits him on the head. Then she drags his body back into his place and goes back to hers. But she would have had to do the same thing with her door, which is come back home from her walk and then not shut the door. Feels like there's too many ways to make this work. None of doesn't seem like any of the convolution is needed. Oh, drags the body 1 over away. That's a good point. Okay, that's a good point. They're hours away. That's a good point. That's a good point. Still, if he's left the door open, anyone can come into his apartment, kill him, and go back home. I don't know why it has to be so convoluted, but I guess the idea is that Lyle is creating an alibi for himself at 7 p.m. when he intends to kill everyone else. He's going to visit them all 7, 8, 9 and kill them. But they beat him to it. I just don't know why it has to be so convoluted. John says, I think what Jesse is stated is basically it. I don't even know what I've stated. I don't really understand my theory. Like, it feels like from a meta standpoint that she's hit him with the horse in her house, and then they dragged the body back with the horse and swapped horses and took a picture of the column from her place to make it look like one column, but I just don't see why any of that is necessary. They're an hour away. He's taken a photo showing that he's planned to have an alibi for the whole evening, showing he's never left. While with them, he's gone and he's planning to show up at each of their houses and kill them. 7, 8, 9. So but how is he gonna? That's his plan. I like that part. His plan is to set up an alibi that he was home all day. He's taken the photo showing he's home at 7. But he's really planning to show up at their houses, kill them with poison, block them so the records don't show up or something. But it doesn't work because they kill him. And maybe at 7, he's actually in her place, taking a photo, making it look like he's in his place. And he could do that by not closing the door. I don't know the rest of it though. John says, I think we have the basics. He was setting up an alibi for himself, so he left his own door open and took a photo at her place to look like he was still in his place. She winds up killing him at her place. Okay, I like all that. So you think that's why the bloody horse is at her place? And then The boxer comes over. They bring the body back. They swap the horses. I mean, it's certainly plausible. The crazy thing is it involves them all never closing their doors, so that the fingerprint sensors are basically useless, in which case we don't know where anyone went. All right, well, I guess we're going to take a break and then read our solution, but there's a whole bunch of other stuff. If you have the energy to try to figure out what it's asking about, you could, like this reenacting the missing quarter of the past. It sounds like that's what the crossbow might be. It might be that he's planning to reenact the killing of the other 3 people. They got him first. And you might try to figure out what's the relationship with this Black Cloak gang. And he says it's a locked room, and he says maybe not. Maybe all the rooms are open. All right. We'll take a break. I'll see you in 8 minutes. We'll read the solution. I feel very good about the first case. The second case seems pretty weird to me. But I'll see you in 8 minutes. We'll figure it out. Main problem is the whole thing in the second case only works if they know they can prove Weil didn't open his door on the 7th. I don't get it. Okay, I guess the best working theory I have is that Lyle has purposely not closed his door because he wants to give himself an alibi for the night when he goes and kills all of these people. So that explains why he has not closed his door. So it shows him coming in at 7 or whenever and not leaving. Furthermore, to really solidify his alibi, he's going to take a photo of him with the lottery thing at 7:05, proving he's in his room when the other people got killed. But he's secretly planning on going to each of their houses, 7, 8, 9. Maybe he was planning on taking a photo. Either way, he actually gets to the female painter's house at 7, which he takes a photo of his lottery ticket dead on with these two columns to make it look like he's in his place. And then he prepares her food or tries to slip her the poison, but she does the same thing to him because she's planned to kill him all along. And then she goes and throws up any poison she ate, and he's been poisoned. And she hits him in the back of the head so that he won't wake up, or he falls and hits his head on the statue. The theory requires that this is premeditated on her part because she also had to have not closed her door. Otherwise, it would show her coming in at 7, which it doesn't. Then the only question is, does she drag the body back, or does she get help from the others and they've all planned this out? But they're able to get him back in to his apartment without triggering the lock or needing his fingerprint because he's purposely left his door open so that he can get back in. All right, that's the best I can do. That's the best I can do, and I'm sorry I just can't follow along with the alternate theories in the chat. I guess it's just too hard with all the moving parts. John says, I guess I'd go with help from others. I think it said the boxer had been spying on him. They all have a motive. They're all going to be relatives of the others. All right, well, I am very curious to see the solutions. Here we go. As a reminder, after we read the solutions, then we're going to talk about our thoughts, but we're going to just read them and see. Here we go. The missing quarter, truth and ending. There's 3 parts to it. Case 1, case 2, and then final ending, whatever that means. All right, here we go. Case 1, the original death of the 3 people. Now we're going to find out if my partner theory was correct or if there was a way he did it all by himself. The murder of the case 5 years ago and the murderer of the case 5 years ago was Lyle. Murderer of the case 5 years later was a joint conspiracy executed by the female painter. Okay, well, this is consistent with our solution so far, but whether the details are right, we're going to find out. Salesman Lyle, along with the dancer, nurse, and teacher, joined an organization known as the Night Killer, where they met at a party hosted by the game organizer. At these parties, the organizer would assign tasks and offer a selection of game projects for members, one of which involved forming teams to buy insurance with fellow team members as beneficiaries. Once joined, this game couldn't be exited, and the participants had to engage in a battle of survival, with the victor claiming a large insurance payout. On October 8th, 2017, Lyle, along with the nurse, teacher, and dancer, purchased insurance, naming each other as beneficiaries. On December 7th, 2017, at Lyle's suggestion, the four, each with their own agendas, boarded the ferry to St. Sharonma Island. They checked in at 9 a.m. that day, learning that it takes an hour, half an hour to drive around the island and 4 hours to walk, and that the manager would immediately report any inability to contact guests and check their villas. Lyle placed a sensor in the bushes near the door between he and his teacher's villas. As soon as the teacher approached, the sensor would flash, signaling Lyle to run to the dancer's villa. Once the teacher entered Lyle's villa, Lyle would receive a signal. At 6 p.m., the teacher headed to Lyle's villa. This is consistent with my theory so far, triggering the sensor. And the signal was sent to Lyle, who then headed to the dancer's villa with the crossbow. This is completely consistent with my theory so far. At 7 p.m., just as the teacher arrived at Lyle's villa, Lyle received a signal from his villa and sabotaged the electrical circuit outside the dancer's villa, causing a power outage. 100% consistent with my theory so far. The manager urgently activated the backup power, called each guest. The phone in Lyle's villa rang, and the teacher, not wanting to draw the manager's attention, answered the call pretending to be Lyle. That is my theory. Due to the change of shifts, the night manager who called did not know that it was not Lyle who actually answered the phone. Meanwhile, just after the dancer finished her call, she was shot and killed by Lyle. 100% my theory. At 8 p.m., Lyle went to the nurse's villa and killed her. 100% my theory. Because the teacher didn't answer the manager's call, the manager immediately reported it to the resort owner, Matt. At 8:30 p.m., Matt personally drove to the teacher's villa to check on him, and the teacher falsely claimed he missed the call due to showering. 100% theory. As Matt was leaving, he noticed something shimmering in the bushes outside the teacher's villa. At 9 p.m., Lyle arrived at the teacher's villa. After shooting the teacher, he wiped the weapon clean of fingerprints, discarded it next to the teacher. Simultaneously, he retrieved the sensor he had placed near the teacher's villa. Okay, I guess the shiny thing was the sensor. I don't even see why you need that. At 10 p.m., Lyle returned to his villa, called the manager, asked for water. 10 minutes later, delivered the water. 30-minute conversation. By 11, it was discovered all guests except Lyle were dead in their villas. After hearing my reasoning, Matt pondered for a while and asked, although Lyle could track the teacher's movements through the sensor, how did he know the teacher would come to find him? And how could he be sure that the teacher would answer the manager's call at 7 p.m.? I speculate Lyle contacted the teacher that afternoon, claiming he wanted to join forces and eliminate the other two participants in the game. They arranged on a time to plan together. Lyle deceived him. So, Lyle's locked room method only has one uncertainty, which is whether the teacher would answer the call from the manager. Exactly. Imagine if you were the teacher at Lyle's villa at that moment, whether you intended to conspire with Lyle or eliminate him. When the manager's call came in while Lyle was away, what would be your initial reaction? I might answer the call. It would be the most prudent way, Matt replied. Unfortunately, we can no longer uncover the truth behind this puzzle piece. Okay, 100% correct. Jonathan Warner says, Jesse was 100% correct. Great job. Yep, even this little detail here. Joining forces, eliminating the other two participants. The whole game is redeemed. The whole game is now redeemed. No matter what happens from now on, it's a great game. All right, let's read this case and see if it goes off the rails now. Any more discussion before we read the second case? Let's take a moment to appreciate that it all worked. All the timeline, all the planning, all made logical sense. That was how it happened. He tricked his friend. To answer the phone, and with that, he was able to go kill them all. Pretty good. All right. Any comments before we read part 2? Because now is where it's going to go off the rails. All right, here we go. 5 years ago, the nurse participated in the night game and bought insurance with Lyle and others, becoming each other's beneficiaries. Seeking a large insurance payment, she accepted Lyle's invitation to St. Charonma Island, but was killed by Lyle before she could act. At that time, her brother, the boxer, was serving a sentence in prison. Upon hearing of his sister's murder, he swore revenge. The boxer, together with the nurse's boyfriend, the broadcaster, and her best friend, the female painter, plotted revenge. All right, we figured all that out. Extensive eavesdropping and spying, they discovered that the nurse and Lyle were involved in the night game. Over the past few years, they deduced Lyle's locked room murder method from publicly available reports, speculating that given Lyle's financial difficulties, he might likely repeat the same method. The three of them found a way to participate in the night game and bought insurance with Lyle. They led Lyle to believe that another opportunity had presented itself. When Lyle, trying to repeat his previous scheme, invited them to St. Charonma Island, they knew their chance for revenge had come. The boxer closely monitored Lyle's every move, and knowing that Lyle had bought sleeping pills, the female painter also purchased some online. On December 6, 2022, the four of them took the ferry to St. Charonma Island, checked in at 7 p.m. This time, Lyle brought sleeping pills and a crossbow. Planning his actions for the next day, his plan was already known to the other three watching him. At 8 p.m., Lyle opened the door to his villa and did not close it again. That was our theory. Around 1 p.m. on December 7, Lyle separately called the broadcaster, boxer, and female to invite them for dinner. After Lyle's calls, the boxer, painter, and broadcaster knew Lyle was about to act, so they started their own plan. 6 p.m., Lyle headed toward the female painter's villa, so far consistent with our theory. 7 p.m., the female painter arrived home and did not close the front door. That's also our theory. The lottery was drawn just as Lyle reached the female painter's villa. 7:05, he took a photo with the lottery ticket at the door of the female painter's villa. He deliberately altered the angle to make two Roman columns look like one and posted an update to establish an alibi. So far, this is exactly our theory. After that, Lyle entered the female painter's villa, gave her food laced with sleeping pills, and pretending to sleep, the female painter grabbed a bronze statue in the house, knocking Lyle unconscious, and fed him a large amount of sleeping pills. Pretty much our theory. Then she left the door open, dragged Lyle into a car. Okay, we didn't assume a car. I guess we weren't told. She took the sculpture and remaining sleeping pills, drove Lyle back to his villa, noticing the door left open by Lyle. She exchanged the bronze sculptures, staged the scene, placing him on the bed, cleaning up. After cleaning up the scene, the female painter drove back to her villa. At 10 p.m., they each called Lyle in turn. At 11, Lyle was found dead. So we basically got it right. except she drove instead of having a friend drag it. So feels like there could have been a lot of ways that could have happened, though. Suzaku and Carl arrived at the female painter's villa, found signs of movement on the bronze sculpture in her room. Suzaku suddenly asked if she had cleaned the room, to which she firmly denied doing so. Confident about the answer in his mind, Suzaku put on a serious expression and claimed that the female painter's fingerprints had been found on the bronze sculpture in Lyle's room, and he was there to arrest her. The female painter's face turned pale, and she exclaimed in agitation, "How could my fingerprints be there? I wiped them clean." Hearing her admission, Suzaku coldly smiled and said, "Of course they couldn't be. It was a bluff." The female painter collapsed on the ground in despair, and Carl stepped forward to handcuff and arrest her. As the female painter was taken away, Suzaku came back to his senses. He looked down at the card with a black axe he was clutching and murmured, "I'll find you, Mr. M." Awaiting Suzaku's next puzzle was also imminent. The murderers escaped. The real murderer was not caught. And Carl concluded the case as a suicide by overdose. What? I don't understand. Oh, I guess this ending is if you figured it out? Were we supposed to only read an ending depending on whether we figured it out? Doesn't really say, but I guess that's the idea. That if we didn't figure this out, we would have read this ending, which said the murderer was never caught. Matt's furious, refused to pay Suzaku's fee, vowed to let everyone know the famous detective was a fraudster. Suzaku watched the departing fairy tightly gripping the card with the black axe, his face showing frustration and willingness. All right, well, we did get it right. So we got the good ending. And that's for a different case. Well, I mean, what can we say? That is victory. On 2 counts, both cases we solved. Second case felt like could have been lots of alternate solutions, but we did come up with our reasonable solution. We were right. My brilliant solution solved the first case. And then second solution, we actually figured out all the details too. I mean, it felt like we used a little bit of meta reasoning about the columns, but not bad. Not bad. Not bad. Let's see what the chat has to say. She could have, if she had brought him back and his door was closed, she was just going to use his fingerprints. John says, those were better cases than the first booklet. Yeah, I mean, I would go further and say that first part of this case was actually very good, with lots of interesting timeline clues and a struggle to figure out how we could have made it work. I would say the first part of this second case was a very good locked room style murder case that we really did figure out. The second part of it wasn't terrible. It was just a little more open-ended. But the first part was pretty tightly constrained to a unique solution, a unique, fair solution. And I like this two-part thing where it was a tie-in to the first case, a little with some narrative about getting revenge. And a clever little tie into this large organization that's still masterminding everything. Not bad. Not bad. A lot better than our first case. All right, well, does that mean... I think that means we're going to end up playing the third and final case in this box. And see if it gets even better or it gets worse again. Not bad. Not not terrible. And the use of these cards to let us visualize who was who, and the cards showing, especially in the first half of the case where it gave us timeline information and stuff and maps. Not bad. Not bad. All right, any further thoughts from the channel before we wrap this up? Good work again, Jesse. Thank you. Well, really, all credit goes to Suzaku. That was a fun case, actually. That was a genuinely fun case. All right. Well, thank you for joining me. YouTube says 13 concurrent viewers, 6 likes. I suspect we will meet again to play the third case. I'm curious to see if it ends on a cliffhanger promising a sequel, or if we are going to actually wrap it up and catch the mastermind of this organization. I'll see you next time.